Hi and welcome to my soul tribe. My name is Miriam Rose. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe, set the bell on all, like, comment and share, as I really appreciate all of your support. I hope you enjoyed today's channeling by Reptilian R'Kok. Now let's get on with the video. Greetings, Earth humans, this is R'Kok speaking. Hakan was kind enough to let me use his channeling spot for this week. I am the so-called reptilian who has unalived millions of people in the past and now greatly regret it. I currently serve as a military advisor for the Galactic Confederation. I'm hoping that via this message I may serve you today. Note that the difference between Confederation and Federation is that membership of a Confederation is voluntary, while membership of a Federation is not. Of course, membership of the Galactic Confederation is voluntary and it is possible to peacefully leave it. Therefore, it is more accurate to talk about the Galactic Confederation than it is to talk about the Galactic Federation. Although, of course, the primary language of the Galactic Confederation is not English, so both Galactic Federation and Galactic Confederation are translations of its actual name. From our perspective, it is less important that you learn a lot of different bits of rational knowledge and more important that you have the opportunity to truly integrate some of these quite important concepts. So here we go. Unity versus separation consciousness. In my life, I have observed many people in many different situations. I have seen so-called good people slowly become corrupted by complying too much with a corrupt system. I have seen so-called good people simply become so overwhelmed or burdened or emotionally exhausted that they either started purely focusing on survival or that they became selfish or even narcissistic. I have also seen so-called evil people start to introspect, either because of love or because they realize that living in a situation where the strong rule isn't always going to be pleasant because they are not always going to be the strongest. I have come to the perspective that it is not super helpful to think in terms of evil people or good people. People are just people. Now this may be a self-serving viewpoint because I have clearly done more harm in my life than good. Still, I genuinely think that labeling people either as evil or as good is not super productive. What I think is more useful is asking yourself if certain people are currently closer to a unity consciousness or closer to a separation consciousness. I use the word closer here because very few people currently have complete unity consciousness or complete separation consciousness. Most are somewhere in between, leaning to either one or the other direction. Unity consciousness is the 24/7 embodied consciousness that all is one. It is not merely the rational acceptance of that idea, it is the embodiment of that idea. Jesus or Yeshua embodied unity consciousness. Conversely, a being with separation consciousness feels in their bones that they are completely separate from anything and everything. It is also rare from Earth humans to completely embody this consciousness every hour of every day. Almost everyone feels at least some small amount of connection and kinship with other living beings. A being with unity consciousness will perceive a homeless person as literally being them and will naturally be inclined to take action to help, in the same way that you are inclined to take action if your finger is infected. In this case, I wouldn't even say that the unity consciousness person is choosing to do good. This is just them taking care of themselves, and they have included that homeless person as being themselves. Conversely, a being with separation consciousness will perceive a random person on the street as being completely separate from them, and hence it makes sense to rob them if you can get away with it, because why not? Their discomfort or pain or problems are completely separate from you, and you will make some money, so why not? So how does the unawake part of the Earth human population score on this scale? Well, of most people is that they are actually closer to unity consciousness than separation consciousness. They are just getting squeezed severely right now, which means that until the squeezing stops, the current day-to-day consciousness of most people is closer to separation consciousness than unity consciousness. Note that some Earth humans who are unawake are actually somewhat close to unity consciousness than certain awake Earth humans. Someone who spends most time working in a homeless shelter may be closer to unity consciousness than someone who genuinely knows what's going on politically and who calls most of the population sheep and thinks that they deserve any discomfort that could be coming to them because they should have woken up after all. Keeping your vibration high. Conversely, some light workers primarily focus on feeling good or keeping their vibration high, as they call it. These light workers often actively avoid looking at their brothers and sisters who are suffering. In my eyes, this is an indication of separation consciousness because they are separating themselves as much as they can from those who suffer. Frankly, I would rather have a drink with an unawakened non-spiritual person who works at a homeless shelter than I would with an awakened spiritual person who only focuses on feeling good themselves. As the Pleiadian humans have stated, some people need to focus on their own well-being in the short term. I completely get that, and this is valid. There was a period when I had to do that too, but it is good once you have found your footing to actually start helping other people. Personally, I see this idea that spiritual people should focus on feeling good, or that they should keep their vibrations high, as kind of a narcissistic trap if people have that as a long-term goal, and not as a short-term method to get solid ground beneath their feet. After all, most people want to feel good, so what makes the spiritual person better than the average Joe on the street, who similarly is trying to feel happy? The spiritual person having certain rational knowledge doesn't have a lot of value if that knowledge doesn't translate into real-world actions. If you consider adopting a new spiritual principle, a good question to ask yourself is, would I like it if most of the awake community adopted this principle? In this case, would you like people around you to actively help others? Or would you like people around you to focus on feeling good themselves? Would you like it if the Pleiadian humans focused on feeling good? If they did, they wouldn't be helping you right now, and your lives would be substantially worse. If most people behave selfishly, and the relatively few awake people focus primarily on feeling good, then what future do you think that is going to lead to? Unfortunately, it is much easier to become a successful spiritual teacher because, well, people will see that you are happy and other people also want to be happy. However, Jeshua, or Jesus, spent time with lepers and healed the sick. Also, some of the wisest beings I have spoken to, the Arcturians, are for the most part genuinely equally okay with the experiencing pleasure as they are with experiencing suffering. And to me, that is wiser than only chasing after the personal experience of feeling good. People often equate how actively happy and radiant does this person seem with how spiritually advanced is this person. That is not a very accurate way of judging someone. It is relatively easy to seem happy or high vibration just by creating a narcissistic bubble for yourself. But that is not a super advanced state of being. It is also not a stable vibration boost, because as soon as this person eventually lets go of the narcissistic bubble, they are probably not super happy anymore and will have to face whatever is painful in either their internal or external world anyway. Manifesting. Similarly, you can make a lot of money as a spiritual teacher by telling people that they can manifest what they want. The issue here is that the people greatly overvalue how much manifesting ability their conscious mind has, and greatly undervalue how much manifesting ability their soul has, and thus most people who try to manifest things that are in line with what their soul wants will succeed, whereas most people who try to manifest things that go against what their soul wants will fail. Unpleasant things often happen even to self-proclaimed manifesting experts, although sometimes they hide those things. And also, of course, successful people will say that they manifested success and wealth, and so can you. But in large part, this is just survivalship bias. You do not see all these people who tried manifesting success and wealth just as hard as the successful people and failed. You only see those people who happen to succeed at manifesting it. Thus the survivalship bias. Those people whose soul wants them to be on a conventionally happy and successful and wealthy life path may convince themselves that they are manifesting experts, and then people whose soul has a different plan for them may try those techniques and fail and get upset at that. Now you are not completely at the mercy of your soul. Your conscious mind does play a role in manifesting. Setting an intention and taking practical steps towards that thing can help in manifesting something. And if your soul wants you to, say, be successful, but you have blocks or trauma in those areas, then releasing those blocks and that trauma may be the difference between manifesting success and not manifesting manifesting success. Hence, the recommendations of the Pleiadian humans to observe your thoughts and emotions, because that helps release your blocks and to communicate with your soul. One somewhat advanced question for the purposes of integrating your ego is just sitting down and thinking. Suppose that in this life my soul doesn't want me to be richer or more successful than the average person. How would I feel about that? Could I have peace with that? Then just observe whatever comes up without trying to change or suppress or judge that. Some wise beings, I know, are not in resistance to the idea of not being rich or successful or well known. Could repeatedly trying to manifest wealth be a sign of resistance to not being wealthy right now? Similarly, the idea of pronouncing that you are sovereign also greatly overvalues how much control your conscious mind has and greatly undervalues how much control your soul has. You can proclaim yourself sovereign, but if your soul wants to move you in a certain direction, then you are probably going in that direction, or alternatively going to experience discomfort until you do. So how sovereign are you then really? Well, in a way you could say that you are sovereign, but then you would have to include your soul in the definition of you. Sure, you can do a whole lot, but that you includes your soul, and your soul may very well have different priorities than your conscious mind has. The typical spiritual person who claims to be sovereign is like a hand who proclaims themselves sovereign. However, if you include your soul as one major part of the definition of you, then declaring yourself sovereign at least makes some amount of sense. But that also means that you shouldn't be confused if you declare yourself sovereign and then find that you still can't manifest things that your conscious mind may desire but your soul may not be looking for. The more advanced Pleiadian humans have integrated their soul, and there is no difference between what their souls want and what their conscious mind wants. This gives them great manifesting powers. However, getting there for a typical Earth human is somewhat of a long process. If you are interested in this, you can ask your own soul if you should work on this and how you can best approach it. You could think of asking your soul for advice or integrating your soul as identifying with a great aspect of yourself. You identify with not just the conventional you, but also with the you that is your soul. Sure, your soul is just a part of you, ultimately, but now you are identifying with the greater you. Similarly, you could think of serving Source, or even as integrating Source completely into your being, as identifying with an even greater aspect of yourself. You identify with not just the conventional you, but also with the you that is Source. Sure, Source is ultimately just you, but now you are identifying with that greater you. Sure, it is important to realize that ultimately you are Source, serving some kind of divinity, who you see as separate from yourself in an old path that you have likely traveled many times with not too much success. However, serving Source while knowing that you are Source is a great stepping stone towards completely integrating Source and having your will and Source's will become one. It is not easy to directly become one with Source without using the stepping stone of serving Source first. Just having the rational, non-embodied knowledge that all is one is helpful, but also not nearly enough to truly become one with divinity. Once your will and Source's will are one and the same, you will finally be able to manifest anything you want, as so many spiritual messages have promised you. Do you believe that? It can be a good exercise to write down which spiritual principles you believe in. Then think about if those principles would make sense if you actually completely lived in accordance with them. For example, say that you believe that you vibrate highly enough, then nothing bad can happen to you because you are not a match to bad things. Okay, again. If you believe this, then just stop closing your front door when you leave. To be clear, I don't recommend actually doing that, because even the Pleiadian humans have to maintain a standing military to defend themselves against, well, my kind. As another example, let's say that you believe that you can choose your vibration. Now, to an extent, you can do that simply by choosing what you want to focus on, and indeed you can feel better via positive focus. However, again, this is something that can be really useful to do if you are psychologically overwhelmed, but it can lead to you being a narcissistic bubble or to a suppression of emotions if you overuse this. And also, it is only true to an extent that you can choose your vibration. Suppose someone very dear to you just passed away. Do you think that you would be able to choose your vibration in that moment? Probably not. Alright, but even aside from those rare instances, you could also ask yourself if you can choose your vibration if all trauma came up. And if yes, should you actually choose to suppress that trauma and choose to be happy instead of actively observing that trauma, which is perhaps not a super happy vibration in that moment? Or to take that even further, it's you wanting to consciously choose your vibration, not just you being in resistance to whatever you are actually feeling in that moment. The wise beings who I am around are fine with feeling happy if they are happy, and feeling sad if they are sad, and feeling somewhat neutral if they're feeling somewhat neutral. I don't ever see them trying to force themselves to feel a certain way. The beings whom I interact with simply raise their vibration over time by doing things like meditation. They don't raise their vibration via things like positive focus or choosing their vibration. Now let's talk about lack of safety and lack of love. From my point of view, most people suffer from a huge lack of feeling loved and feeling safe. I am not blaming you for this. The vast majority of you indeed did not receive the love that you needed when you were a child, and feeling safe in this world would require you to thoroughly embody the fact that you are a reincarnating being. And I know it's hard to fully embody that fact if you were brought up with the opposite belief. So I'm not blaming you at all for this. Still, it is good to realize that a lot of spiritual beliefs that are popular on earth are popular because they make people feel safe. Believing you can manifest what you want feels safe. Believing that you are more or less immune to bad things happening to you if you just keep your vibration high feels safe. Believing that everything that happens to you is automatically beneficial or part of a divine plan feels safe. But just because you feel safe doesn't automatically mean that safe-sounding principles are actually true. Unfortunately, people who adopt these kinds of distortions in an attempt to feel safe often make the people around them feel less safe or concerned or alone. The medium-term solution is just doing your work of observing your thoughts, breathing deeply, letting go of illusions, etc. And one day, you will genuinely embody the consciousness that you are a reincarnating soul, and you will not feel afraid no more how scary the world becomes. My respect for you. Finally, I would like to express how much I respect Earth Light workers. I grew up in a world run by beings with separate consciousness, and I also, too, had a separation consciousness right up until the moment that the Galactic Confederation captured me, had me choose between execution or a redemption path, and then showed me the light. However, you also grew up in a world run by beings with separation consciousness, and yet the vast majority of you, light workers, have turned out to be loving, heart-centered people who are trying to do their best and help others. Even the average Earth human may be a bit selfish and self-concerned because they are getting squeezed so much, but they are still not nearly as destructive as the average reptilian is. I think you're doing great. Perhaps in time, once you too have benefited from the Galactic Confederation healers and have some firm ground under your feet, you can be teaching me. Because after all, you never turned murderous while I did. The Dark Controllers typically model humans as machines, and they expect that if you are not given love, then you will not treat others with love. And yet, many of you absolutely do treat other people with more love than you have been treated. I think that's amazing. I think you are amazing. I think it's a small miracle that you are treating others with more love than you have received, almost as if you are creating light out of nothing. How would you view someone who gave others much more love than they themselves received? An amazing being, right? Well, so too do we view you. Yes, I have been discussing a few concepts that I think are not particularly useful or valid, but overall, I think you're doing absolutely amazingly well. Everyone here is very proud of you. We love you. With greetings, this was R'Kok. I hope you enjoyed this channeling, and I hope you got something out of it. And if you enjoy celebrity news, then please visit my other channel called Miriam Rose. With absolute gratitude, love and light. Cosmic kisses to everyone. Till next time. Bye for now.